You know something strange about gifted people? Most of them have absolutely no idea they are gifted at all. They spend their whole lives feeling different, confused, or somehow broken. But they were never broken. Psychology has a name for this experience. It is called misidentified giftedness. And it affects far more people than anyone realizes. Today we explore 10 signs your mind may be more gifted than anyone ever told you. Giftedness is not always loud or obvious. It does not always look like straight grades or trophies on a shelf. Sometimes it hides quietly inside the sensitive, the restless, and the intensely curious. So if you have ever felt like you think differently from most people around you, this video is for you. Not to flatter you, but to finally reflect back something that may have been invisible your whole life. The first sign is that you feel everything too deeply. While others move past small moments quickly, you carry them. A single conversation, a piece of music, or a stranger's expression can stay with you for days. This is not emotional weakness. Psychologist Elaine Aron studied this for decades. She found that gifted individuals have a nervous system that processes experience more intensely than average. Their brains simply cannot treat life as surface level. What looks like oversensitivity from the outside is actually deep processing on the inside. Gifted people are not reacting more. They are noticing more. Their brain captures layers of experience that others simply do not register at all. If you have been told your whole life that you are too sensitive, too emotional, or simply too much, consider this. Your depth was never a defect. It was always a feature of a more perceptive mind. The second sign is that your questions have always made people uncomfortable. Not because you are trying to challenge anyone, but because your mind genuinely cannot accept incomplete answers. You need the real reason behind everything. Research from the University of Michigan found that intellectually gifted individuals show stronger activity in the prefrontal cortex. This is the part of the brain linked to deep curiosity, critical analysis, and the relentless need for true meaning. Most people stop asking once they receive a basic answer. Gifted minds simply cannot do that. There's always another layer beneath the surface. Their brain keeps pulling at loose threads until the full picture finally emerges. So if teachers or adults ever seemed irritated by your questions, it was not because you were being difficult. Your mind was simply working the way gifted minds naturally work. Deep, relentless, beautifully thorough. The third sign is that you have always been the observer rather than the center of attention. In group settings, you naturally step back. You watch, you listen, and you notice what most people completely miss. Studies in gifted psychology show that intellectually advanced individuals tend to gather information before acting. They process more sensory and emotional detail per moment than average. This makes them naturally quiet in social settings, but deeply, powerfully aware. This is almost always misread as shyness or disinterest. But inside, the gifted observer is one of the most actively engaged minds in any room. They are simply processing on a frequency that others cannot hear. The person standing quietly in the corner of a room is often the one who later describes the entire evening with perfect accuracy. They were not absent. They were absorbing everything with remarkable precision and care. Now, consider this for a moment. How many times in your life were you told you were too sensitive, too quiet, too intense, or too different? What if every single one of those things was actually a gift? The fourth sign is that you naturally connect ideas that seem completely unrelated to everyone else. A conversation about cooking leads you to think about economics. A song lyric reminds you of a moment in history. Your brain loves bridges. Neuroscientists call this divergent thinking. Gifted brains show stronger neural connectivity between regions that typically operate in isolation. This allows gifted individuals to make creative leaps that feel completely natural to them, but appear almost magical to others. This is why gifted people are so often labeled as strange or scattered. Their mind is always drawing invisible connections. What looks random from the outside is actually a very sophisticated internal system of pattern recognition and meaning-making. If you have ever been explaining an idea and watched someone's eyes glaze over halfway through, you know this feeling well. Your connections are real and deeply logical. They are simply ahead of where the conversation currently is. The fifth sign is that you have always felt slightly out of place. Not dramatically, just a quiet, persistent feeling that you see the world a little differently from most of the people surrounding you. Psychologist Lita Hollingworth studied highly gifted children and found they experience what she called social isolation. Their advanced way of thinking makes it genuinely difficult to connect with peers who are processing the world on a different level entirely. This is not arrogance. It is a very real psychological experience rooted in cognitive difference. Gifted people do not feel above others. They simply feel like they are living in a slightly different version of the same world. The loneliness that comes from feeling out of place is one of the most common experiences of unrecognized giftedness. You were not weird. You were simply operating from a depth that your environment did not know how to meet. The sixth sign is that you are relentlessly hard on yourself. You hold yourself to standards that others would never even consider. A small mistake that no one else noticed can feel absolutely enormous, even unbearable to you. Psychologist Kazimierz Dabrowski studied gifted individuals and identified what he called psychic overexcitabilities. Gifted minds have an internal drive toward perfection that is deeply neurological. Their brain generates more self-critical activity than an average mind produces at rest. This constant inner pressure is genuinely exhausting, but it is also the very same force that has always pushed gifted people to keep going, keep improving, and keep reaching for something better than what currently exists around them. The challenge is never the ambition itself. The challenge is learning to turn that same powerful, relentless mind toward yourself with kindness. Gifted people are often far more generous with grace toward others than they ever are toward themselves. Now consider this for a moment. If giftedness is so powerful, why do so many gifted people end up feeling like failures? The answer may have everything to do with how their gifts were handled very early in life. The seventh sign is that you learn things very quickly as a child, but then hit a wall when things became genuinely difficult. Gifted children often coast through early education. When real challenge finally arrives, it can feel absolutely shattering. Psychologist Carol Dweck found that gifted children are often praised for being smart rather than for working hard. This creates what she calls a fixed mindset. They begin avoiding difficulty because struggle starts to feel like a sign of failure. So if you were considered bright early on, but later felt completely lost when things grew harder, this was not a personal collapse. It was a gap in how your gifts were nurtured. Your potential never actually went away. Many gifted adults carry deep and unnecessary shame around this exact experience. They remember the early praise and wonder what happened to that version of themselves. The answer is simple. That version never disappeared. It just needed the right conditions. The eighth sign is that you have a powerful and sometimes painful sense of justice. You feel genuinely disturbed when something is unfair, even when it does not affect you directly. You simply cannot make yourself look away. Research shows that gifted individuals have heightened moral sensitivity. Their brain activates more intensely in response to ethical violations. This is why gifted people often become the ones in any room who speak up when everyone else stays silent. This sensitivity can feel like a burden, especially in environments that reward compliance and quietly punish honesty. But your refusal to normalize injustice, even when it costs you something real, is one of your most defining and powerful qualities. Gifted individuals often carry a sense of responsibility for a world that never asked them to. They feel called to fix things they did not break. That impulse, though sometimes heavy, comes from a genuinely extraordinary and caring heart. The ninth sign is that your mind simply will not turn off at night. Long after everyone else has fallen asleep, your brain keeps working, processing, revisiting, creating, questioning. Sleep has always been a complicated and frustrating relationship. Studies consistently find that highly intelligent people tend to be night owls. Brain activity remains elevated in the evening hours. This is linked to abstract thinking, creative processing, and the gifted mind's constant drive to make full sense of everything. Those late nights when you could not stop thinking were not a disorder. They were your mind doing exactly what it was built to do. Gifted brains often produce their deepest thinking in the quiet hours most people sleep through. If you have spent years apologizing for the way your mind works after dark, stop. That restlessness is not dysfunction. It is a mind so alive and active that even rest becomes another form of deeply meaningful creative work. The 10th sign is that you have never quite trusted the version of yourself that other people describe to you. You always felt there was more to you than what others were able to see or truly understand. This is supported by identity research in gifted psychology. Researchers call it asynchronous development. A gifted person's inner world grows faster than the environment can reflect back. They feel invisible not as imagination, but as a genuine, lived reality. The people who could not fully see you were not cruel. They were simply not equipped with the right tools to measure what stood in front of them. You were never too much. You were too deep for their instruments. And here is the most important thing. The fact that you still carry that quiet knowing inside you, that persistent sense of something more, is itself the clearest sign of all. That knowing has always been completely trustworthy. Now consider this for a moment. Every single sign we discussed today was once used as a label against someone. Too sensitive, too curious, too restless, too intense. But labels only hold power over what we do not yet understand. We began this video with a simple and painful truth. Most gifted people were never told they were gifted. They grew up carrying their depth like a private confusion, wondering why the world always felt so different to them. The signs were always there. In the feelings you could not name. In the questions that never stopped coming. In the loneliness that arrived from thinking too deeply in a world that often preferred to keep things simple and safe. No test gave you your giftedness. No teacher certified it. No grade ever confirmed it. It was simply always there, working quietly inside you, shaping how you see the world in ways you may only now be starting to recognize. Giftedness is not a trophy. It is not a reward for being the best in the room. It is simply the experience of a mind that moves through the world more deeply, more curiously, and more intensely than most are built to. The real gift was never about being better than anyone else around you. It was about being more awake, more present, more genuinely troubled by the things that are worth being troubled by. That is not a burden. That is a purpose. So the next time someone tells you that you feel too much, question too much, or simply think too differently from everyone else, remember this. They were not identifying a flaw. They were just not yet ready to recognize a gift.